Hi, my name is Amara Coley. I'm Head of Customer Success here at Horizon 3. And I'm joined by my colleague, Subhash.
Hi, everyone. My name is Subhash Arja. I'm a Director of Product Management here at Horizon 3 and excited to be on this webinar with you all.
Awesome. So today we're here for the second installment of our webinar for Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Today we're discussing how to find out if you are getting the most value out of your EDR through a health check. It's a new feature that we recently introduced, and we've got a number of customers that are joining us today to show you and talk to you a little bit about some of the initial value that they've been seeing with our EDR health check. A little bit about our agenda today. We're going to talk about the state of endpoint security as it stands today, and just how you can use Node0 to run an effective health check on your EDR. We'll talk about how you can mine the gaps between your EDR and just ensuring that it's covering all of your endpoints with some lessons from our panelists today. I want to also reinforce that this session is meant to be interactive throughout, so please feel free to raise your questions in the chat. Look forward to hearing from you and also hearing your ideas and any feedback you might have if you've been playing around with the feature today. I'm going to pass it to Subhash to share a little bit about some thoughts and reflections as we think about the state of EDR today.
Thanks, Amara. I think what we found in general is that EDRs are typically at the top of most of organizations' security tooling budget. They're typically in the top 3 or 5. Clearly, they're investing a lot in endpoint protection in general. However, there's a lack of solutions out there to confirm that their EDRs are actually working, and they'll actually block real attacker activity. Usually what we found is our customers and a lot of organizations in general are just crossing their fingers, hoping that their EDR will protect them during a real attack. And this is where, at Horizon 3, we saw an opportunity. We always look at security through an attacker's perspective. And so we saw this opportunity to really extend our product capabilities to start testing this very valuable investment that our customers make on endpoint protection tools. So I'm really excited to talk more about the feature here with Amara today, and really hoping that you all find a ton of value in this, given that it's probably really at the top of your budget in general.
Excellent. Thanks, Subhash. So to start, we want to really share that at Horizon 3, we're taking a platform agnostic approach. We understand that customers are using a variety of different EDR solutions today, whether you're using CrowdStrike, SentinelOne, Microsoft Defender, and a whole suite of other tools out there. Sharing a little bit here of what we've heard from a customer who recently proof of concepted this new feature. So essentially, they ran Node0 along CrowdStrike and used its findings to tune and strengthen their detections. They showed that it immediately made their defenses sharper, and that the CrowdStrike engineer was able to use data to change things and rules in real time. So just a little bit of how we are developing new features that will allow you to bridge the gaps between offense and defense and prove it actually works and strengthen your security stack overall. So when you think of using Node0 to check your EDR, there's really 3 main ways. You're using it as 1, running continuous health checks across all endpoints to detect gaps in coverage. 2, you can use this to diagnose issues like inactive agents, missed updates, and broken configurations. And then finally, you can validate if your EDR is actually detecting and stopping attacker behaviors while prescribing prioritized fixes. Next, I'm going to pass it over to Subhash to show you in practice what it actually looks like in the platform.
Amara, did you want to talk about the anatomy of an attack, or do you want to go to how the EDR health check works?
Oh, yes, actually. So let's actually talk a little bit about, so earlier Subhash mentioned we're taking in an attacker's perspective. So if you can see here, Node0, here's a clear example of how Node0 was able to achieve domain compromise just through 1 misconfigured EDR out of 10,000 hosts. So all it took was 1. We essentially exploited a Java deserialization CVE, and we compromised a host. We were able to successfully bypass Windows Defender and install our remote access tool on the host. Doing so allowed us to dump and exploit credentials. And then finally, we achieved domain admin privileges through these pilfered credentials alongside other issues we were able to find. So what again we found was that just through this series of unfortunate incidents, you can have probably a very terrible day. And our goal here is to help you avoid having a day such as this customer in this example did. Next, I'll pass it over to Subhash to talk about the few steps you can take to successfully run an EDR health check.
Awesome, thanks, Amara. Yeah, and that's a really compelling example of what you can accomplish with an EDR health check. And the good news is it's very simple. Running a health check right now is pretty easy. It's already built into our existing internal pen testing template and our internal pen test capabilities. So when you're configuring the internal pen test template, if you want to ensure that Node0 is able to run the full suite of hosts on a test to really exercise your EDR for all the scenarios that it should be blocking attackers or potential attack scenarios, all you have to do is inject the right credentials for us to be able to implement the remote access tool on that host. If you don't provide us credentials, that's also fine. We've had a lot of customers look at testing their hosts from a true attacker's perspective, meaning that they're not giving them the implant to see the credentials to see if Node0 is able to test that full attack path. If in that situation, what we'll try to do is do our best to leverage a weakness like you saw in the previous example that Amara covered to implant the RAD and really test the EDR. So both scenarios are things that we support, and that's what's summarized in step 2 here. And at step 3, once you click off the internal pen test, you see the results, and there's a new EDR tab that's now embedded as part of the pen test results, so you don't have to go anywhere new based on your previous usage of the product. And that will contain an overview of our entire test suite and what we found by vendor, et cetera. And we'll dive into that in the next couple of slides here. And then finally, we also give you details as to what we tried on each host, what was successful, what wasn't successful, where the EDR was working, perhaps where it had gaps, and you need to double click on. And so it's all built seamlessly into our existing workflow for internal pen tests, and that's something that we're really excited to already see our customers using and having more people use as a part of their regular workflows. So now I'm going to talk about the actual results, right? So let's take a look at what the results look like. The first thing you'll see when you complete your internal pen test is this overview page. And in general, what we're showing here is a summary of where we found EDRs on hosts, where we didn't find EDRs on hosts, or perhaps where hosts you expect to see EDRs, and then where we weren't able to implant the remote access tool to actually run the full suite of hosts. So that might be situations where you might need to inject credentials for us to be able to drop the implant to run the full suite of hosts. Secondly, we also have a breakdown by vendor. A lot of our customers find this really useful to really prioritize one vendor over another. We found that many customers have multiple EDRs that are running on their hosts. And so this is a good way for them to prioritize which ones to really focus on. And then we also give you a list of downstream impacts and MITRE attack tactics so that you can further prioritize based on specific type of impact. So for example, host compromise and domain compromise are two of the most severe impacts. And so if that's one, those are impacts that you really want to focus on. You can filter by that on the dashboard here. And similarly with MITRE attack tactics, we map the actual actions that we're doing to common TTPs, and a lot of our customers use those as a good framework to measure and see and benchmark themselves to see if they're meeting their requirements there. And so that's also a view we provide. And then the last thing that you'll see on this page is this table of hosts, and these are all the hosts that we tested in scope of this pen test. And you've seen probably this host tab in other parts of the pen test results pages. And here we'll give you a detailed breakdown of all the hosts we've tested. What EDR vendor we detected, if we detected one, how many actions we attempted that are focused towards EDR protection specifically, and then what are the downstream impacts and the MITRE attack tactics. So this really gives you now a second level to go in and investigate the hosts that you may find are more important, especially if they're domain controllers or they're hosts that you're particularly interested in. So now let's dive deeper into what the actual details of the results look like for a particular host. So let's say I'm a user and I'm really interested in one of the hosts. and I want to understand why did my EDR allow this many actions, and why are there critical actions that are being allowed. And so what you're seeing here is now when I click into a host, you see a list of the actions that Node0 has attempted with a description of what those actions are. And then we also map each one of those actions to a risk. Typically, we rank these risks based on how severe they are, based on how an attacker could take advantage of them. So in that example that Amara covered before, we were able to implant a rat, and we were able to achieve, we were able to extract credentials based on implanting the rat, and so that's one that's marked as a critical risk, right? So that's something that an EDR should have blocked us from doing, but didn't. And then we also list the downstream impacts and weaknesses. So this integrates well with Vulnerability Management Hub. So if this is a particular weakness that allowed us to gain a foothold on the host through Node0, this is one that you can track with Vulnerability Management Hub as a part of the Find, Fix, Verify flow. And in addition to that, we also provide forensic information so that you can go back and correlate this to your EDR log. So for example, if there's a particular timestamp here for an action that's marked as a critical risk, you can go correlate this with an EDR log and see what the EDR was doing at that time. If it detected an attack, perhaps it allowed the attack on purpose. And so this is something that you can potentially work with the CrowdStrike team or the SentinelOne team or Defender team or any of the number of the EDRs that we support to double click and understand why the EDR was allowing this action, and perhaps there's a config change that needs to be made. And to help with that, we've also added proofs so you can see what commands we're running and what the results are. And so this is ideally your really double click and detailed view into getting those real detailed information on how you can correlate this with an EDR. And we're definitely continuing to improve this capability in the future and to build out more remediation guidance, specifically vendor-specific remediation guidance. So definitely excited about continuing to add on to this capability and continue to build more value.
Thanks,
and
Subhash.
Now I'll pass it back to Amara for summarizing and tying all this together.
Excellent. So as you think of tying this all together, what does this look like? It really is that you know that your EDR actually works before an attacker does. So step one is you run a Node0 attack. And then step two, you see how your EDR reacts. Does it detect our actions? Does it stop our actions? And then finally, with the information you're getting from Node0, you can use it to validate and tune your platform. The result is that you end up having a continuous data-driven confidence that your endpoints are truly protected. And you maximize your value, not just with Node0, but in your EDR and your overall security toolkit. So I'm excited to get into hearing from a couple of the customers and partners that we have today. I'm going to do a quick round of introductions. We've got William, John, and Jason, who we're so grateful to have them share their time and their experiences with us today. I'm going to first pass it over to William. Would you introduce yourself, your role, tell us a little bit about your background into cybersecurity and your company?
Sure, thanks, Omari. Pleasure to be speaking with the team today and the audience. Just really quickly, I'm at Kyndryl. More specifically in the security and resiliency space. Even more specific, over the past 2 to 3 years, been developing go-to-market and offerings with Horizon 3, where we have realized a managed security offering around autonomous pen testing at our company, and also right now have the abilities to deliver POVs for our clients. And also been able to offer a managed security service offering 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, which is tied to our offensive security services. Been in cybersecurity probably for the past 15 to 20 years. I come from DoD, but after coming out of the Air Force, I was been in the MSSP space with a lot of the large MSSPs that we typically recognize in industry. What we're doing right now, just to kind of jump off of the journey, we've started with Horizon 3. It was about 18 months ago, and we really started cutting our teeth with our offensive security teams in the spirit of penetration testing and threat exposure management. We have matured a lot over those 18 months alongside Amari and Subhash. To include what we're talking about here. So really starting to branch from where we have a solid foothold in autonomous pen testing in an iterative manner, and moving that to, well, how do how do we move that up the stack, if you will, for offensive security services plus SOC services? That brings us completely ties to with what we're doing today and talking about EDR. How can we increase our confidence of what is being taken place on a client's EDR? In that spirit, we also have advisory and implementation services wrapped around this to build confidence. Absolutely. We, like Subhash, you said, we constantly are being asked, can you help me with my EDR, my maturity? Is it integrated? Is it working as best as it can in order for us to reduce risk? Can you help me with that? And to include, can you help me with vendor selection? Maybe it's a time for them to either migrate based on integration capabilities. So happy to be speaking today. The journey has been fantastic and looking at this and boy, lots of other things that are coming out with Horizon 3 from Kyndryl. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you so much, William. We're excited to have you here. Next, let me pass it over to John. Would you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your journey into cybersecurity and your journey with Horizon 3 so far.
Yes, good morning, Amara. My name is John Kizik, and I'm the CISO at Cap Metro in Austin, Texas. And I've been in cybersecurity for about 20 years or so. I started off with the state of New Jersey, criminal justice, homeland security. And my path took me to Austin about 3 years ago, working for Cap Metro, which really was an up-and-coming transportation, how should I say this? The numbers were rising just because of the influx of a population into Austin. So we really had to up our game. We transferred a lot of resources over to the IT area, and they didn't really have a cybersecurity section at all, just a networking team. So they decided to make that an actual, team on the Cap Metro IT team. So we, I came in alone, had one person, and basically looking at, what we had and how I can, do a reconnaissance and see what was going on and where we had the most vulnerabilities. So I depended a lot on tools just because of not the resources. And, standardly you do the pen test every year and then try to catch up and do it all in one time. But I was looking for something more volatile, versatile, where I could just run this test whenever I wanted. And I looked at some tools and just nothing was really, meeting my standards. And so I went to Black Hat a few years ago and had an engagement about Horizon 3, and this tool just clicked, and it just put everything into what I was wanting to do. I mean, because I was dealing a lot with people that have been in the agency for a few years, and they're used to just doing things a certain way, and I couldn't really get the ideas that some things can be misconfigured. There's vulnerabilities. If we just unpatch some older system, it's a doorway in. So over the years, Horizon 3 has just allowed me to do that cat and mouse game where I can actually find what's going wrong, where the vulnerabilities are, and not just where, but it prioritizes them. So I'm able to concentrate on the most important ones, and then as time goes, scale that down to the lesser ones. But it it gives me peace of mind to have it running in the background and consistently, and really with the customer success of Horizon 3, we have meetings every month and more if needed, and they just walk us through and are excellent. So I like I said, this is probably one, if not the best vendor I work with, and I wouldn't give it up for anything.
Thank you so much, John. So great to hear that. And then rounding us out, Jason, tell us about yourself and your background in cybersecurity.
Sure. So I'm a Director of Information Security and Architecture at Matson. We are a large shipping company and logistics. I've been doing IT and security for 35 years. And what we were looking at Horizon 3 to do is mature our overall vulnerability management and red team operations. So instead of just accepting all of the noted vulnerabilities from vulnerability management, we're using a tool against them to see if they're actually exploitable. And then when it came to the EDR piece, it made it much easier for us to do purple team exercises where we actually were testing the host-based alerts and make sure that they were flowing through to the operations team, that the MSSP in the middle was catching all of those.
Jason. So we're going to dive a little bit deeper into some of the great information you've all shared in your introductions. But first, I wanted to address some of the questions from the attendees. Number one, this meeting is being recorded, and yes, the slides will be available after the fact. Let's see, there's a question we have. There's a great question, actually, William, you might be able to kind of speak to this a little bit. So one question we have is, I'm wondering about MSP license for resellers, who are trying to sell pen tests to customers using Node0, if it's possible. Can you share a little bit about your thoughts in selling Node0, and then also kind of how you're thinking about packaging EDR health check?
Yeah, so just real quick about the existing offering that we have for autonomous pen testing in the CTEM space. Right now, Kyndryl provides and procures all of what you need. So when we're pricing to a client, regardless of the scope, is 1,000, 5,000, 50,000 assets on a reoccurring basis. That really doesn't matter. We have a model right now that we can very quickly spit out what that cost and price looks like on a reoccurring basis, and includes the licensing. That's how we package it. So we already have our instance that is ready, available to pull the trigger. And so whenever we get to that start, we do the very simple configurations and connections. We start that onboarding process. But as Kyndryl, you'll write, I kind of say, one check where we accommodate that. What that also allows is a flux and an easy way to expand or decrease on a reoccurring basis. So let's say we've got an agreement for a year, and we want to go to 30,000. That is the full environment that they're wanting to look at. Boy, and that's a lot. And which absolutely appreciate the visibility into the environment with that many assets. So it just becomes that more meaningful. But to the point, it allows us to expand without having to go back. So we can start that slow expansion from beginning to end. So over the first quarter, we may say, listen, we want to start with the most critical assets. Let's start here. And that number is 5,000. Then let's go do that. Or you want to pivot up to 15 the next quarter, or 30,000 to the next. There's not this back and forth. Well, we've got to go back and figure out things out. We handle all those logistics in order to accommodate how do you want to do a phased rollout. Now, without getting too long-winded, Amari, you asked about EDR. We absolutely have a very easy pivot to do two things. One, conduct a threat exposure assessment, which we could do that, which may draw out, say, before we want to do an MSSP with the baseline or EDR, can we do a quick assessment? We're formulating what that looks like right now, so you can just get a taste of what am I looking like right now, so I can focus my energies on that critical path. That also can pivot to an EDR offering that we have already in advisory and consulting. So that's just waiting in the wind for us to bundle those two together, and we could tackle that in one single engagement, depending on what that looks like over the course of, who knows, maybe 1 to 2 months. So that's what that looks like, and it's super easy for us to dovetail those engagements. And just like I said, the offensive security services, SOC services, able to pull those together. So that's how we envision it, in a pretty seamless engagement way.
Excellent, William. Thank you for sharing. We got a question from Stefano. Can John tell us how he handles all the noise, all of the logs, the alerts, et cetera, that each pen test produced? Do you have a SOC, and how do you get the SOC to behave?
Yeah, we actually do have a SOC. We've over the years prior to my coming on board, we've used a few different themes, and it's always was something was just we needed too many people. We need more people than we had to run the SOC. So we basically now we do a lot of our I can say I don't want to. I can say we use the Google checkups. So I'm going to just. I hope I can say that. But we found it to really be low hands on as far as what resources needed. That we can feed everything over to there, and then we have a lot of the dynamic responses from them. We just don't have the resources to have a full-fledged SOC here. So we have about 5 people, but we're all over the place, and using this Horizon 3, it really lets us prioritize on where our issues are and alerts us to anything that may be going on. And I go back to this. The biggest people that we're trying to get to believe what's going on is the people that we work with, because they say we've done this for a long time, and it's really not necessary to go through these routines and the maintenance and the upgrades. But this has really, able to show them, and I have a meeting this afternoon just to show this is what's going on. And if we don't go through these processes and keep configurations up to date and constantly check, we're vulnerable. So, I mean, it's really, it guards us from ever having to worry about the SOC getting alerted and having some issues in the middle of the night or just off hours, and then again with the EDR, it really helps us to fine tune that. We were getting a lot of false positives and so forth, but we're able to say, why was this picked up? How can we tune this better? So they work in tandem, the EDR and Horizon, and like I said, it just does the work of a 50-person team, and that's what we really need where I'm at, because we don't have a large footprint, we don't have the large resources, so we're trying to use as many tools as we can without overlapping. But this has been a godsend. Did I answer your question, Mara? I'm sorry, did I miss anything?
No, that was definitely great. Really appreciate all of the responses from our panelists. I have a question for you, Jason. So you mentioned like the first health check you run with EDR showed a little bit of just a visibility gap. Can you share a little bit about that aha moment when you saw those first results?
I think it was interesting to see, one, how many clients were actually online at a time. Because it took us a while to realize that the number we were seeing just represented when the test was happening and how few machines were on during the test. And that was an important metric for us to realize that the numbers we're getting from other tools may involve machines that have been offline or even decommissioned for some time, and getting a difference between what we have in inventory versus what we see online was pretty important. And then also being able to show the risk difference between a normal user account, and then we ran the EDR check as the help desk account and got a very different result. So being able to rerun tests with different privilege levels was super helpful for us to understand what the real risk was.
Love to hear it. We got a great question for John and Jason from James. As technical security and IT professionals handling large and complex digital environments, what is the #1 way that Node Zero has helped you communicate your plans and your accomplishments to non-technical stakeholders and decision makers?
I'll jump in first. Go ahead, Deb. Okay, yeah, sure. What it really helps us do is since we've been having Horizon Zero on board, we've actually improved our presence as far as, when we first ran the first scan, it was just really depressing. We said we're fortunate to not be in a worse place, but over the few years we've had it, we've actually increased our configuration compatibility and maintenance up to like 70%, and what that does, that makes me feel good and more comfortable in the team. But it also helps, I'm able to show these graphs and these findings to when I present to the board about what we're doing, why we need to spend, increase the budget, and what needs to be prioritized in the budget. So it really not only just does the protection side for me, but it allows me to ask for more budget and justify why we need the budget, and also to show that over the past years, this is what we have done and continue to do, and without that, progress and the funding for it, we're going to find ourselves halted. And I really, just the whole instance of AI and it's coming about the past years is really, a concern. And I just really, lets me able to display, the graphs and the statistics that the board wants to see. And they can, really connect with that and not just be talking in a technical sort of speak. So, I mean, it really makes it easy to get the point across. And when they see the hard numbers like that, it's invaluable.
Excellent, John. Jason, your thoughts?
Can you repeat the question?
Of course. So when handling large and complex digital environments, what's the #1 way Node Zero has helped you communicate your accomplishments to non-technical stakeholders and decision makers?
Well, I think the most helpful thing was to cut down on the noise from vulnerability management. So feed everything that was possibly vulnerable into Horizon 3. When we run the scan, the reports are very easy for executives to understand the attack path from one host to another, and also easy to give to our developers so they see exactly the commands that were typed. So not only do they understand how the vulnerability works, but a quick retest.
Can I add something to that, if this is all right? Boy, kind of going off script. So Jason, this is where I was going as well. I find that at least over the past 10 years, there's sort of two things that become extremely hard to convince the board without the analytics. It's like, number one, is what you're showing me truly going to hurt me? And is it something that I should work on? Like, you talk about the vulnerabilities, you talk about the other pieces of things, you talk about EDR, you talk about these technologies. Not that they're great, right? They're doing their job, but it's like the boards want to know, is this going to stop my business? And I think that's like #1. It's like, I'm coming to you with information that absolutely has the potential to stop you in our tracks. That's like #1. And then the second one that I fell in love with when I learned about the platform is the ability to translate the alerts in the tool to business impact statements. So our industry, we're getting so much better at this. It's like, you got to translate that into something that means something to them. The tool does both of those things, and is resonating to get traction, to try to communicate it. Boy, I'm super passionate about this space. Like, we've got to get to brass tacks. What's most important? Is this going to drop me? Fine. Can you translate that to business? Yes. That's where I've absolutely endorsing kind of what we've been doing here. So sorry about that, but there you go.
Love it. Excellent question. And just for their audience, please keep the questions coming. We're here to help address some of the things that are top of mind for you. Ultimately, our goal is to help you maximize the investments in your EDR and your overall security tech stack. Next question I have for our panelists. So everyone assumes their EDR is working until they test it. When you hear the phrase EDR health check, what does that mean in practice for your organization? How would you encourage others to think about an EDR health check?
I think, in my opinion, the most important aspect of EDR health check is just making sure that it's grabbing what's important and not ignoring, but the less priority, what's not that important. And I got to share a personal experience with Horizon. The first time we ran it, we just did it, ran the first test just to get an idea of what we had, discovery, and go forth. And then our EDR was sending us alerts, isolating computers, isolating systems, and I learned real quick that you really need to work along with the EDR, because they'll isolate these systems and they'll shut down other internal systems that can really affect your business. So it was a wake up alert, and it just goes to show how seamlessly that and the targets that Horizon 3 goes after really alerts to the EDRs. And then there's, on the flip side of that, there's others that weren't even alerted and we wanted to know why. So it really gave us the insight to say, okay, our EDR is meeting the standards here, but then we have some questions about why wasn't meeting this. And then sometimes it's good to hear what their reasoning is. Some make sense, and otherwise they just missed it. But I just stress that if you do run it, and let your EDR know about it ahead of time, and we do that. And so there's no shutdowns. I said we learned the hard way, and I don't want anyone else to have to go through that. But
thanks, John. Anyone else have to add on? What is a health check? What does an EDR health check mean for you in practice?
I'll just go real quick, and this will be fast. I think the way we've looked at an EDR health check from a consulting perspective, when you think about what we're trying to provide from Horizon 3, I think it falls short to reality. I think you look at where is it being deployed, is it getting visibility, what's being configured, what are the policies that are in there, and is it integrated, right? So it's like when you talk about cybersecurity, in on all this is EDR doing its job, but is it integrated in the larger architecture in your cybersecurity approach for a SOC? Whether it's orchestration or a SIM or vulnerability management, which just makes it that much more powerful when you're trying to respond. I think traditionally, when there's EDR health checks, it's not including this. It's not including, well, let's test this. Let's test this. Let's see if you are really doing it. So it gets it from a different angle. And so it pops up things that I think John was bringing up: visibility, configurations, wrong configurations, or you just didn't mature the system to where it needs to be. That's I think what it's looking like, and the value of where we're going.
Excellent. Jason, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So as you know, a big part of security is it's collaboration. It's either purple teaming internally. It's also how we partner across different vendors. Can you share a little bit about your experience, and have you been able to use some of the initial results from Node Zero to help drive deeper collaboration internally or externally?
Yeah, I think one of the most helpful things is to be able to share a report with the EDR vendor and try and figure out, is this a fault of the EDR tool or maybe just a configuration that we have not turned on? It could be that we've been using EDR so long, some of the newer features that would have stopped the Horizon 3 pen test from being successful is just something we haven't turned on. So we're able to give the report to our vendor and just say, what can we do to turn these attacks off in the future, and how did we miss them?
Excellent. Thank you for sharing, Jason. So we got a question from JC. How do you use EDR reporting, especially in challenging parts of your organization, to prove the real risk of loss to the business? Let me pose this one to you, John. How do you prove the real risk of loss to the business?
Sure. Like I said, we had that first incident where the first time we ran Horizon 3 and we had our EDR isolating machines and so forth. And that was a pretty good wake-up call as to what businesses are going to stop quickly. Fortunately, it was on a weekend and off hours, so it really didn't have that much of an impact. But what we can do is we actually take these graphs and show the team, look, this is what's going through here. We have FRA standards we need to, mandated, as well as TSA being there with transportation. So this actually allows us to go through and a lot of the systems that we've had, because it's rail and bus and so forth, are not as easily updatable. So we have to really go through them and say, look, this is the whole, as you showed earlier in the one graphic, how it goes through the line and where it comes in and what it touches. That's really been invaluable in showing, look, if we don't take care of this one, it goes down the line and it is going to stop this scheduling software or this tracking software of buses and trains. So it brings it right out front, and it shows them if this goes down, nothing's going to work. And still trying to get the point across, but actually a lot of, even where I'm at, IT's only blamed, and they would really not recognize what they do, but it kind of makes it easier right now to say, hey, if this goes down or IT's not doing anything, everything goes down. We're more important than just a scapegoat. So I think that really was allowed us to again, like I said, I do the security presentation to the board a few times a year, and I can point these out and show how they've had avoided us having some issues in the past years. So I really in that stake it again, we have systems, and this tells you which ones are important and just how integrated they are, because it's not just one system or one person that's offline. It could actually shut down the whole rail or the busing system for a short time or a longer time.
Excellent. And while I have you, John, earlier you mentioned you've seen a 70% improvement since adopting Node Zero. What drove that change? Was it process, technology, mindset? Like, help us understand what was a big part of that transformation.
No. The biggest thing was the customer success from Horizon 3. We have a dedicated rep engineer that we work with at least monthly, and probably talk to him about every week or so. And we've gone through this. We've seen what the big fixes are, where the little ones are that we can help suppress some of the lower alerts. And I mean, I tell you, it's not only him, but the team. Every time we have a new meeting every month, there's another add-on or something new from Horizon 3, which and there's never a price tag with it. Just saying these are something we're introducing, so it's continually becoming a better product. And with the expertise of the monthly meetings is invaluable, because Horizon 3 is so you can go so deep into it. You could have a person dedicated or two just to do on the app, and that would really keep them busy. So I mean, just that was invaluable. And so I actually did the report over 2 years, and I wish I had the graphic easily available, but and I showed it to our board and to our auditor, and they were impressed. And then again, when it comes budget time, I show that and say, this is what you're getting for your money.
To hear it.
Again,
and I'm also
customer success is what I'm really impressed by. We just didn't say here's a tool and good luck with it. We're constantly engaged, and we have monthly schedules, but it's probably more than that. And that's really invaluable to us.
I love to hear it. Really glad to hear about the great collaboration with John and our CS team. So thank you for sharing your experience. It definitely goes beyond just the product and the platform, but it is that overall holistic partnership approach that we're taking. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, sure.
I have a question for Subash. So Subash, our panelists have shared a little bit about their initial experiences, from some of the biggest aha moments to the transformation that's driven. What's next for EDR Health Check, and how do you see this continue to evolve? Even just thinking bigger picture, as we make a number of improvements into the platform holistically, what would be your advice that you'd give to the audience members today?
Yeah, that's a great question, Amara, and I'm really excited to talk about the roadmap for EDR Health Check and where it's going, and also talk about where we're expanding beyond just endpoint protection. One of the things that we're looking at for EDR Health Check specifically is becoming more integrated with the vendors themselves. So like I mentioned, I think in one of the slides, we want to provide remediation guidance that's specific to vendors. So Jason, for example, we've worked with him to provide him guidance, and also work with him to get information about how meetings with Microsoft are going, and what information they would need to further configure the EDR the right way, configure the Defender EDR the right way, and what configurations we can provide. And so that the whole holistic remediation guidance, specifically around vendor-specific remediation guidance, is definitely a path we're going down. And then in terms of UI enhancements, we're looking to continue to embed the EDR results further into our general attack graph and attack information. A lot of our customers find just looking at visuals of the attack graph and seeing how the entire story played out for an attack that Node Zero was able to successfully execute is something that we're continuing to build out. So really excited about that. And then, like I mentioned, going forward, beyond endpoint protection, we see similar gaps in the market when it comes to identity and data protection. And so as we talk about EDR Health Check, we're looking to expand into identity health checks and data health checks as well, with a lot of IAM tools out there and DLP tools. And so it's really just we're scratching the surface on what we can do in terms of security tooling efficacy, and how we can continue to be a partner for our customers to make sure they're getting the most out of their tooling in general. And so that's really where I'm excited to take this feature, and definitely more coming in the near future, and hoping to have more of these conversations with our customers and partners to continue to expand on the capabilities here.
Excellent. Thank you, Subash. So we got a great question coming from Rebecca. And she's tying it, I love that she's tying it between our two panelists. So considering what John went through with the onboarding, the EDR locking machines, how would this be handled for an MSP client? Question for you, William.
Yeah, I think when we see someone enlisting our help to do something for EDR, we normally do it in two different phases. First of all, is it something new, or are you trying to migrate from one EDR to another? Or do you have an existing EDR? So we sort of tackle that separately in order to do that. When we look at the EDR, we could come in and we would do an assessment. That's typically how we start. And if the assessment is, well, I just don't know if it's performing, I don't know if it's right for me, I don't know if it's optimized, we start that assessment with what's being configured, how is it being deployed. Now, if it's new, if it's a new technology, or if it's us assuming services in an EDR, we go through, if you will, a little bit of a, it's not an assessment, it's more of an analysis of the current state of what's happening and how is it being used in the environment. So we do a little bit of, are you at the beginning of your journey? Are you at the middle? Are you at the end? Are you only using EDR in a certain segment or environment of your organization, and you're slowly branching out to other more critical environments? Boy, I feel like I'm dancing around the question. I think the way we would handle the onboarding of EDR at the beginning to understand where do we want to go? What's our phased approach? What's the current configurations of that technology? And is it optimized for what we want to do? Again, we can't do everything at the beginning. It's a methodical approach. I feel like I'm punting that question, but it's at the beginning to understand what are you doing, and so we can safely migrate out to do our best to reduce risk of events taking place. We also do where we start to look at let's test our deployment in a test environment, or a dev environment, or a UAT environment first, making sure that's available, and then we'll branch out to try to, again, lessen that impact for those types of things to happen in a methodical way as best we can.
Let's hear it. Hopefully that addresses the question you had, Rebecca. Let's see, got more questions for our panelists. Let's talk about let's double click a little bit on using results to educate teams. So help us understand how you've used results from, or how you're envisioning using results from your EDR to educate teams in terms of the actions and the outcomes you'd like to drive in the future. Does anyone want to go?
Sure, I touched on that earlier, and I actually mentioned we have a meeting this afternoon just to go with the networking team to show them, what the effects are. If there's the patching is an issue. Some people take it more serious than others. Others are saying it's not that important. But we actually have a meeting. We're having our rep from Horizon 3 come on and explain and walk through with the team. This little minor patch that you don't think is important is really a possible disaster waiting to happen. So what we're having is an educational team. We have our smaller meetings with the our security guys, but this is bringing the whole rest of the team in to let them show our telecom, our infrastructure, the VMs that they're putting up. It really is going to let them focus and see what can happen, or what we're finding with the pen test, because we try to give a lot of people access to the results from the pen test, but no one really goes into it. So I think this is maybe it's a term for us, rather than just saying go look at the dashboard. We're actually summarizing, and probably going to do this on more of a monthly basis. Just present what the findings are, and let them know how it is being affected, and the potentials for either efficiencies or potential disasters. So that this is really it's a learning tool for them, and educates the whole team on where we need to put our priorities and what not to ignore. And unfortunately, in this day and time, especially with the government funding and so forth, we've got to make the most of what we have, and this really gives us a real boost with that.
Excellent. Thanks again for sharing, John. I'm going to take us back to one thing we talked about earlier in the conversation, which was basically how all it takes is one weak link. So essentially, with one weak link in this attack path, we showed how Node 0 was uncovering misconfigurations across 10,000 hosts, but only one link led to domain compromise. When you look at this, what is this, for any of the panelists, what does this teach you about the reality of EDR coverage at scale and why it's important to take action now? Jason, I'll pose the question to you.
I think one of the things we may have learned is that by having human-led pen tests, sometimes they're not pulling on every thread. Like they might find one host that is vulnerable, but they only have like a 1 or 2 week engagement to actually exploit everything. So having something like Horizon 3 go through and iteratively do things with the power of like hundreds of bots going out and actually trying all these different vulnerabilities. And also the speed at which we can retest is a big difference. Because when you think about the lifespan of a pen test, a couple weeks of scoping, a couple weeks of engagement, and then usually a set time to retest the items that you've remediated. The problem is that'd be 30, 60, or 90 days down the road. And unless you're paying for more than one retest, you usually only get one shot at doing that. But with doing the EDR health check or rapid response, we can quickly iterate on remediations to see if we actually fix the problem without having to re-engage a human pen tester.
Awesome. So definitely taking on a little bit more of a hands-off approach and not needing to, not needing to kind of deal with multiple cycles of working with humans. It's really appreciate you sharing that example, Jason.
Yeah.
I'm looking a little bit of time, but I got a couple of really great questions. Next question I have for John. You mentioned cybersecurity in your intro as a cat and mouse game. So how is having a continuous sparring partner like Node 0 change that game for you?
Well, it really, what it does is we tend to concentrate on whatever the priority is at the moment, be it, if there's we get the alerts, you get so many alerts, emails and from different organizations about what's going on, and you have to, look at this, and that sometimes can pull your attention away from the other issues that can arise that, well, you're not paying attention. So this really gives us a full insight picture of what's going on, across the board. We're not it's not always just saying this is the highest stuff. We're seeing everything, and we go in there and monitor it, and we look daily and want to see what's not being configured, what is a new issue that wasn't there, yesterday or the week before. So it basically forces us to look at the whole picture and not just the important, not necessarily important, but the exciting part of the movie. So we're looking at the whole movie at one time, basically seeing everything everywhere, and not, when we get the alerts, or, how can I say? I'm trying to say too much about it, but it really doesn't. It just doesn't put our attention on the new threat of the day. It actually has us keep our scan on the whole system, and not ignore it, but always, nothing sneaks up on us anymore in that sense. So that's also I really find helpful. And again, when you repair something and have that automatic button to retest and verify that the fix is in, that's invaluable as well, just to follow up on the last comments too.
I wanted to add something to just real quick to what John was saying, and then I think what we've seen is this is absolutely a force multiplier. We're able to do this much faster and retest and get to what's most important very, very quickly. That's what we've experienced with our folks. And we're able to advise as well over top of that. That is making a difference. I think another thing that John was saying is, when Kyndryl started to look at the attack path, not only is it force multiplier, not only is Offensive Security Service able to give you advisory, but we're able to also be able to tell them where other things need to be addressed along the attack path. So we can speak to identity and access management people. We can talk to cloud security people. We can talk to SIM folks. We can talk to segmentation folks. Like it's force multiplying even outside of the SOC to other areas where we're like, you've got a job. We see a dependency. You need to go solve this. So that's where we've also seen an amplification of the resources to be able to address other vulnerabilities.
Exactly. It really helps with any type of collateral damage and or the potential for it. So it again looks at the whole picture, not just a part of it.
Excellent. Question I have back to you, William. So Kyndryl works with some of the largest enterprises in the world. When you think about how the conversation of EDR effectiveness, how does this changing as you look at new solutions like EDR Health Check from Node Zero? And also, talk to us about how you're seeing this amplifying or modernizing the services you already have in place.
Yeah, we sort of started with this with the beta release with you, Amari, several months ago, and I think this has started to help us branch out from offensive security services and bridge that gap between offensive securities and SOC. That's number one. We sort of saw that we wanted to do that, but this was sort of the ignition. Be like, this is what's going to allow us to pull those two together. What are we working on right now? We're looking at the use cases in order to expand just that. How do we couple SOC services with offensive security services in an offering in order to bridge those two together? Working on that right now. Hopefully exciting offerings to market within the next 60 days in order to bring those together.
Question for John and Jason. Kind of tying this back into some of the unique challenges that you've faced in your industry. Can you speak a little bit to the importance of, how you see Node Zero and features like EDR Health Check helping maximize uptime when you have particular business risk for your organization?
I'm just trying to digest the question a little bit better.
I can phrase a little bit differently.
Sure, maybe that would help, I think.
Yes, of course. Like, could you share a little bit with their audience? Are there specific things that you have to consider for your unique industry? And what role do you see Node Zero and, solutions like EDR Health Check playing a role?
Well, that's just it. Basically, for transportation with the rail, we have a PTC network, which is basically protects the train speeds and so forth. And we've got to make sure that's 100% up consistently and really isolated from anything. So I mean, it's really air gapped, and we have basically with that you have a waterfall device which only allows us to get some monitoring out of it, but no one to enter the network. So if we have any alerts on that network, that's ground zero. If something like that goes, we've got to know about it. And this really keeps an event monitor on those devices that are pulling the data from it, and anything that's awry lets us know, and we can jump right on it. So that's another great peace of mind right there.
Thank you.
And again, that probably digs in deeper than what the EDR is at times, because we're hesitant to put anything into the system that isn't ours, because it's basically run by the government and specialists, and without that everything stops. So that really allows us to have some insight into that, better than what we've ever had in the past.
Excellent. And then Jason, would you like to bring us home?
I can't think of any specific use cases that help uptime. I can't.
Or even thinking from a shipping and logistics perspective, what's most important for you and what you would expect to see from a vendor like Horizon 3?
I can speak to new rules from the Coast Guard, which is requiring that we run regular pen tests on all ships, and having a runner on each ship will help us do pen tests a whole lot faster than having to try to get a human that is available during the time at which a ship is at port, just for those narrow couple windows of actually doing the pen tests. But having a runner on each one is going to save us a whole lot of work when it comes to new Coast Guard rules.
Excellent. Okay, I'm looking at time. We're right on time. I just want to thank our panelists, Jason, John, William. You've given just phenomenal, great advice. Subash, always great co-hosting with you. Our audience members, very thoughtful questions coming through. Again, this meeting has been recorded. We'll be sharing with you some of the takeaways as well. If you have any follow-up questions, please reach out to your account team. We're happy to do a deeper dive in some of the areas we've talked about today. And please stay tuned for the next product webinar.